own personal ambition or whatever, who want to be on TV. God bless them for that. But I can't take my eye off the ball, which is to stop what is happening in the Senate. And if I just may...
I was going to say, let's get right to the Affordable Care Act, because I know you have a...
I have one quote. I said I don't usually bring any notes of this, but I want to make sure you know that I am reading this exactly. This is from someone named Bruce Siegel. He's president of Essential Hospitals. And this is what he says. There has never been a rollback of basic services to Americans like this ever in U.S. history. Let's not mince words. This bill will close hospitals. It will hammer rural hospitals. It will close nursing homes. It will lead to disabled children not getting services. People will die. That's what they have on the table. And all of this to give a tax break to the wealthiest people and corporations in America. It's just not right. It's just not right. He didn't say that. I said that last one.
Well, I think what people, when you look at this process, first of all, it's been so fast. I mean, the Affordable Care Act had hearings all through the summer.
10 months.
10 months of hearings, hundreds of, I think over, 150 amendments considered.
150 Republican
amendments considered, hearing after hearing after hearing. We're talking about in a matter of a couple of months, pushing this through. Mitch McConnell wants to vote next Thursday. So I think a lot of people who were just sort of jarred by the speed of it. Is there anything that the public that opposes this bill, and across the board people hate, if polls say they don't like the bill, is there anything people can do about it?
Thank you very much for that question. What we're doing right now is a story storm. I'm so proud of the outside groups, so many of them. If I start naming them, I won't name all of them. So all of the progressive social media, they helped defeat the Republican bill in the House when it lost. What did they do but move further away from people, further to the right, off the scale of any decency? And when they did that, they made matters worse for the American people, but made our argument stronger. The message clearly is going to cost you more to get fewer benefits. There's going to be an age tax. You could pay 5 times as much, perhaps, if you're 50 to 64. 23 million people will lose their insurance, and Medicare will be undermined. When they went further to the right, our message then became they're going to take away your essential benefits where pre-existing medical conditions, all of that, people with disabilities, prescription drugs, hospital stay, maternity care, prenatal care, all of that, no longer essential benefits. And so when Mitch only started this in the dark just a while ago after he saw how unpopular the House bill was. But just getting back to the groups for a moment, these groups carried that message so strongly on the social media, to town hall meetings, to offices and the rest, rallies all over. I mean, without them, we can do our inside maneuvering all we want, but without the outside mobilization of people's voices, because nothing is more eloquent to a member of Congress than the voice of his or her own constituent, and they amplified those voices. So if you have a story to tell about yourself or your neighbor, please go to Facebook, Twitter, whatever, Instagram, any platform that you want. My story that I tell all the time is there's a little girl, Zoe Madison Lynn. She was born with a congenital heart disease condition. She had her first heart operation before she was 15 hours old. By the time she was only a few months old, she was halfway, she had 3 operations, she was halfway to using her whole lifetime limit that the insurance company would pay for. By the time before she went to kindergarten, she had used it all up. Used up all the a lifetime of coverage before preschool, before kindergarten, I mean. So with the Affordable Care Act, and then she would have a pre-existing medical condition for the rest of her life, which would probably deprive her family, or at least her, to be excluded from any coverage. The Affordable Care Act changed all of that. And her story is not an individual one. her family. She has the care that she needs, the coverage that she needs, and we cannot take that away from her. But the stories are the most powerful. So if you have a story, please tell it. And if you know of a story, have your friend tell it. But mostly what I want you to do, in addition to that, is call a friend who lives in a Republican state or a Republican district, even within this state, and have them say, this is what this means to me. This is what it means to my daughter, my son, my husband, my mother, because it's going to make a tremendous difference. You know, in terms of the Medicaid that Bruce Siegel was talking about, it will close nursing homes. Over 60% of the funding for people in nursing homes and home care, too. You know, some people are at home, but they still get care from Medicaid. Over 60% of it comes from Medicaid. So when they cut Medicaid in this horrible, terrible way, it has a big impact. People think of Medicaid poor kids. No, Medicaid poor kids, yes, they will suffer. But Medicaid middle-income seniors in nursing homes or getting care at home, it will have a tremendous impact on what families can do for their children in relationship to what they need to do for their seniors. So tell the story. Call a member of Congress. Now, if you're calling a Republican senator, if you live in New York, they don't care. The same thing in California. It has to be their own constituents. Does anybody know anybody who lives in a state that has a Republican senator? So when you go home, call that person and tell them to make 2 calls, to call their own congressperson and call their senator. Because if they pass this bill, God forbid, on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever, they're going to send it right over to the House, and then it can go right to the president.
And do you think, I mean, having done this, you had to do it with, you know, we all remember the process. You worked through that House bill, it went to the Senate, and then you had the job of steering that Senate bill back through the House. And it can be, that is when a lot of people are sort of theorizing it could die. But do you think that there's a real threat that this bill, as the Senate bill has written, as the Senate has written it, could pass the House?
Well, we don't know what it is yet. I mean, from what we have seen so far, you hear what people say. Let me do the substance and let me do the politics. The policy, the politics, and the American people, the most important factor in all of this, the 3 Ps. On the policy, it's devastating, but it's not bad enough for the extreme radical right wing in the Congress, in the Senate, and in the House. They're just saying it doesn't go far enough and all. They don't believe in a government role. This is the deconstruction of government. Medicare should wither on the vine. Medicaid should be capped and cut and diminished. Social Security will take away the disabilities benefits. That's not really hurting Social Security. No, yes, it is. President Bush even wanted to privatize Social Security. So it's a pattern of deconstruction of government, and deconstructing this Affordable Care Act is what they're doing. But in the meantime, they're going worse. More people will lose health insurance than gained it out of the Affordable Care Act, because they're using the occasion to take down these other things. So the bill that is there now, people, they say one thing, but nobody knows what's in the mind of Mitch McConnell. Say he doesn't have the votes. Hopefully he does. If he doesn't have the votes, does he pull the bill? If he doesn't have the votes, does he just let it go? Because what everybody thinks is that Mitch just wants to get on to tax reform, and he just wants to
more tax cuts.
More tax cuts. More tax cuts. And he thinks they'll do that in a second and send it to the House and Senate, vote on that, send it to the president. And they want that, what they call an accomplishment, which will increase the deficit, ignore the needs of the American people. Without going, let me stay with healthcare. Chuck says it's a 50-50 chance. Democratic leader of the Senate, Schumer, says that there's a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
He said that on TV this morning. That's a little bit scary, but it's probably very realistic. So we just have to make sure people know, the senators know, that people know what this means in their lives, because that's the only thing that really matters. How does it affect people's lives? So on the political policy, and people, on the political side, they may sell a political bill of goods. Why would anybody vote for this? Why would anybody vote for this except that it is stick together on it? And again, I don't want to question their motivation. Although, this being Sunday, I always say, you all pray in church on Sunday and then you pray on people the rest of the week. I just don't get it.
So I'm watching the clock, and I want to make sure that we get your questions in as well. So I think the good folks here at the 9 Second Wire are going to start to pass me the cards so that we can also have the questions that you have for Leader Pelosi. But I have to ask you, did you ever think that you would see the day when the Republican Party, which during the Ronald Reagan era was, Reagan was tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev, that you would see the Republican Party essentially excuse, or at least not actively push back against a president who his campaign may have colluded with Russia to get himself elected, but at minimum, the incredible affinity toward Russia, wanting to give back the compounds that were taken from them by President Obama in sanctions. What do you make of this?
Well, it is funny because it isn't funny, but it is curious that so many Republicans who are so hardline against Russia, the Soviet Union, and then Russia, are acquiescing, but some are speaking out. Mm-hmm. But my question is, what do the Russians have? What does Vladimir Putin have on Donald Trump politically, personally? I ask this question several times a week, politically, personally, or financially, that this president of the United States would come into office, kowtow to Putin, put him on a pedestal, besmirching our values as a country, flirting with the idea of not doing the sanctions on Russia for their aggression into Eastern Europe, and then going to NATO, to the dedication of a building dedicated to the spirit of 9/11, and not embracing Article 5, which is mutual defense of each other. The only time Article 5 has been invoked, has been when they came to join us in the fight after 9/11. That's the only time. And he went there, and it was in his speech, but he decided to skip it. Now he's saying, oh, yeah. But the president has to know that his words weigh a ton. And when he omits something like that, it has a tremendous impact. So hopefully there's some maturation going on there in terms of understanding. But I'll just say this before we go to the questions, because I spent the week, not the weekend, but a day yesterday in Hyannisport. We had a big Democratic fundraiser, if I just may say, with the Kennedy family and Joe Kennedy, who's magnificent and wonderful. He's so fabulous. He took the lead on it, and just beautifully the way he spoke from the values of his family and our country. But what I said to them there was, because some of the speaker questions and all were about foreign policy, I said, I was probably the only member of Congress left there who was at John F. Kennedy's inauguration. I was a student, and my husband Paul was there also. We weren't together. We didn't even know each other at the time, but in any event, that would come later. But and in his speech, the whole world knows, from history, it was my youth, that he said, to the citizens of America, ask not what our country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, right? You remember that. Everybody knows it. They've read it in the history books, if not remembering. The very next sentence in the speech is, to the citizens of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what we can do working together for the freedom of mankind. A really beautiful sentiment about respect, not condescension or we're doing you a favor, about respect. And it is, it's such a contrast to what we saw in this inaugural address, but nonetheless in this